Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into how artificial intelligence is literally reshaping the global classroom right before our eyes. Finding the right balance between cutting-edge tech and traditional learning, well, it's arguably our era's single biggest educational challenge. From massive national mandates to hyper-cautious rollouts, the entire world is basically acting as a giant laboratory for the future of learning right now. So let's see what these experiments are actually revealing. But before we get into the hard data, we really got to address the ultimate question that parents, educators, and policymakers are losing sleep over today. It's the elephant in the classroom, right? Are we looking at a technology that's going to make traditional teaching totally obsolete? Or is this simply the most powerful educational tool we've ever created? As we dig into our sources, I want you to keep this quote from education expert Rakesh Middle in the back of your mind. Education isn't just about cramming the shiniest new tech into a room. It's fundamentally about holistic human development. It's about building curiosity, empathy, and lifelong habits. Because if we lose sight of the human sitting at that desk, all the generative AI in the world isn't going to make us better learners. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. AI enters the classroom. 2. Singapore's measured master plan. 3. South Korea's cautionary tale. 4. The U.S. legislative patchwork. And 5. The irreplaceable human element. Okay, Section 1. AI enters the classroom. The universal challenge here, and this popped up across all our sources, is figuring out how to make AI a pedagogical enabler without totally wiping out the actual cognitive sweat required to build a strong mind. I mean, the temptation is obvious, right? Why struggle for hours on an essay when an AI can just spit one out in 3 seconds? But stripping away that productive struggle is exactly what educators are fighting so hard to prevent. Let's move to Section 2, Singapore's measured master plan. Now, what's super fascinating, and honestly kind of terrifying, is the core fear driving Singapore's highly structured policy. It's this phenomenon called cognitive atrophy. Basically, it's what happens when young brains start outsourcing their foundational thinking to machines. Singapore's research points out that handing AI to a child too early might literally prevent them from ever developing the necessary neurological pathways for basic recall and problem solving. So how do they stop this? Well, Singapore uses a strictly phased rollout to protect those developing brains. It's a tiered system. For lower primary, that's grades 1 to 3, there is absolutely zero AI allowed. The focus stays completely physical and multi-sensory. Then, moving to upper primary, AI gets introduced, but it's heavily supervised by teachers. It's only when students finally hit secondary school that they're trusted with independent use. Singapore wraps all of this up in their 4-Learn strategy. They aren't just dropping tech into kids' laps. They actually mandate a 10-hour Code for Fun program so students understand how AI actually works under the hood. Plus, the tools they do use, like the AI Learning Assistant, come with strict pedagogical guardrails. If a student asks the AI to just write their essay, the system actively refuses to spoon-feed them the answer. It acts as a coach. It doesn't do the work for them. All right, Section 3, South Korea's cautionary tale. If Singapore is playing the long game here, South Korea basically decided to sprint. We're talking a staggering $496 million injection into a 2024 initiative to rapidly mandate generative AI digital textbooks across elementary, middle, and high schools. The grand vision was to completely reshape learning by March 2025, using AI to perfectly customize content, pacing, and close achievement gaps. But, as you can probably guess, things did not go according to plan. This hyper-fast implementation sparked a massive backlash from parents and educators who felt the essential groundwork just hadn't been laid. After a really frantic series of ed-tech lawsuits and major policy pivots, an August 2025 legislative reversal abruptly stripped the AI software of its legal textbook status entirely, bumping them down to mere supplementary materials. The takeaway here, rushing educational technology without building a solid consensus first just leaves schools totally confused and the domestic tech sector in absolute chaos. Once that textbook status was stripped away, school funding dried up instantly. Adoption absolutely plummeted to 30%, and the companies that had invested billions of won were suddenly facing massive layoffs. It is a really brutal lesson in policy whiplash. Let's look at Section 4, the U.S. legislative patchwork. So how is the United States handling this whole thing? Well, definitely not with a national mandate. Instead, it's a highly decentralized scramble. According to early 2026 data, 31 different states have introduced 134 separate pieces of legislation just regarding AI in education. Lawmakers have officially shifted from merely researching AI in 2025 to actively trying to regulate its presence in the classroom right now. When you really dig into those 134 bills, three clear themes jump right out. First, fiercely protecting student data. For example, California is actively preventing student data from being harvested for commercial AI training. Second, establishing strict usage boundaries. Idaho actually went ahead and passed a law expressly prohibiting AI from replacing human teachers. And third, updating graduation standards, with states like Georgia making AI literacy a core required workforce skill. And finally, Section 5, the irreplaceable human element. Underneath all these budgets, laws, and policy flips, education is still fundamentally a deeply human endeavor. While AI is undeniably incredible at capacity building and generating customized lesson pacing, it fundamentally lacks humanity. An AI cannot offer empathy, it cannot model civic values, and it literally cannot hold a student's hand to guide them through their emotional development. The technology is an administrative superpower, sure, but the teacher remains the irreplaceable moral center of the classroom. Which brings us to arguably the most important concept in this whole explainer. Education expert Niru Khosla completely hit the nail on the head when she talked about productive struggle. Technology should never, ever be allowed to bypass this. Productive struggle is the essential cognitive friction your brain requires to actually learn and retain complex information. If an AI just hands you the answer, you skip the struggle. And if you skip the struggle, the knowledge simply doesn't stick. The brain needs the workout. So, as we keep pushing these incredibly powerful digital tools into classrooms around the world, we want to leave you with this to chew on. Are we using AI to make learning easier by just removing the effort entirely, or are we leveraging it to make the journey deeper, richer, and more profoundly human? Definitely keep questioning how this tech is shaping the young minds in your own community. Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer. We'll catch you next time.